Good evening. On June 2, journalist Raisa Robles placed a tweet on Twitter equating the opening of Mindanao tourism as perhaps a chance for the Abu Sayyaf and other armed groups to make hay. Of course, that tweet roused tempers among Mindanao folk and non residents too. Barbed statements flying back and forth on social media can sometimes further muddle an already complicated issue. But how do we gauge personal safety in Mindanao? Is there even a one size fits all diagnosis for the Philippines' largest and most multi-diverse island? How can we journalists improve our stories and the references we make about Mindanao? Not because we fear a backlash, but because of a real need for clarity and nuance in discussing Southern Philippines. Welcome to Voices from the Regions. I'm Inday Espino Barona, Rappler, Head of Regions, with Herbie Gomez, Rappler's coordinator in Mindanao. Tonight, we take a deep dive into issues that may impact not just tourism, but also how the country's biggest island affects the national situation. We'll be hearing from Raisa Robles herself, and we also have two other colleagues who have covered and lived through the upheavals, the victories, the pain, and joys of their Mindanao. Amir Mawalil Tausug worked as a journalist before joining the Bangsamoro. Well, first joining the congressional staff of Mujiba Taman, right? And then now he is an assemblyman for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. He has also written a book of provocative and moving essays on his home island. Julie Alipala, senior correspondent of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, is based in Zamboanga and has covered conflict and recovery in Western Mindanao for more than a decade. Welcome, Raisa, Julie, Amir, Herbie.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Inday.
Good evening.
Okay. Unahin natin si Raisa. Raisa, matagal ka ng Twitter user. In retrospect ba, mga ano na, 2 weeks na, no? Do you think that tweet gave a fair, contextualized appraisal of Mindanao?
Just a moment. Wait, came in.
On hindsight, would you still frame it that way? Or would you modify the message?
Perhaps on hindsight, I would have used the adjective all of Mindanao. But looking back, I think, I was of two minds at the time that, should I talk about tourism because I've seen a lot of stories drumming up the promotion of Mindanao as a regional tourist destination. The entire region, no questions asked. And I was thinking, maybe I'll just let it pass. But then I thought safety of the tourist is very paramount to me as a Filipino and to me as a journalist. And so I think I would have used the word all. I would have inserted that word, all of Mindanao, at the same time, because Picture this. Is Mindanao really ready to encourage mass tourism in the entire island? Can we visualize plane loads of tourists from China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Europe, and the US flying into Mindanao? We're not just talking about, a dozen tourists. We're talking of the Department of Tourism does not really release figures of tourist arrivals according to regions. I found, according to region, was in 2017. And I saw that there was only tourists arriving in Davao City through the airport. This December, only for 1 month, visitor arrival to the Philippines by airport. Davao was number 246, with 1,898 tourists. Manila was the top, of course, 389,293 tourists. For me personally, Mindanao is very beautiful and should be visited by tourists. But is Mindanao, all of Mindanao, ready to welcome all tourists, foreign and otherwise?
Okay,
Inday?
Rice. I'm gonna jump in lang kasi because you're getting choppy. What Price I was basically saying was
Can you hear me?
okay, better. Sige, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Raisa. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, um, Tech is Rice. We're gonna mute you for a while. We'll come back to you later. But
Okay.
we're going to jump to some other questions. But
You
just to
didn't hear everything that I said?
no, I did. I did. I'm trying to explain it
No, I
for
was
the.
finished
Oh, you were. Okay.
actually already.
Okay. So para lang dun sa there were portions that were choppy, but just for our audience, basically she was saying that in hindsight, she should have probably would have inserted all because while she very clearly states it's a beautiful island, um, there are certain areas where she still feels na baka hindi pa ready talaga na magbukas para sa mass tourism. So she would have added that new one. So now, pupunta tayo muna kay Amir, no? Amir, um, totoo naman, ikaw rin mismo sa libro mo, in your books, in your writings, when you talk with friends, um, clearly you're not a stranger to the violence that can rock Mindanao. But you're also part of a new generation that has worked hard to transcend Mindanao's sometimes harsh historical realities. Now, how did you react to Rice's tweet, and how would you want to frame the issue?
Thank you, Ma'am Inday. I agree. There were some of my writings focus on what happened in the past. I think even yung first book ko, karamihan dun sinulat ko essays were written 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. It was collated. But the time, I think yung tweet lang siguro ay medyo hindi na timing. Sinasabi natin that hindi lang naman kami ni Julie yung nag-react doon. Um, in the last, kung yung tweet na yun ay nangyari siguro mga 7 years ago, walang ganong outrage, Ma'am Inday, Sir Herbie. Hindi kayo nakakita ng outrage from Mindanaoans 6 or 7 years ago pag pinoportray or dinidepict yung Mindanao as nilalamp into one adjective na delikado. Pero ito yung time na nakita natin medyo overwhelming yung reaction from Mindanaoans. Kasi kahit sila, hindi na sila nag-agree na hindi na ito yung situation namin ngayon. Malayo na 'to from 6 or 7 years ago. Kasi hindi ko nakita yung ganitong reaction 7 years ago, eh, kasi madalas naman talagang dine-depict na, delikado yung Mindanao kahit nasa isang sulok lang ng region nangyayari yung sinasabi nating conflict. Pero iba yung reaction na na-solicit ngayon, this time nung tweet na 'to. So, ako lang, una yung point na hindi talaga puwedeng i-lump into one place, into one adjective yung Mindanao. Second, I would have to address the elephant in the room kasi alam naman natin 'pag sinasabing magulo yung Mindanao, nagfo-focus tayo sa isang region which is the Bangsamoro or the ARM dati. But even dito sa BARM, even dito sa Bangsamoro, ang dami na ring development. Say for example, um, papuntang island province ng Tawi-Tawi. Dati-dati, barko lang yung pinupuntahan mo dito. It will take you 3 to 4 days para makarating ng Bungaw, Tawi-Tawi. Ngayon, almost every day na yung flights. Both yung Cebu Pacific at saka yung Philippine Airlines. May mga nangyayari na rin flights within the Bangsamoro region. So, I think kailangan natin i-revisit kung ano man yung mga na-observe natin in the past, especially kung 6 or 7 years ago pa natin nakita yung Mindanao or hindi tayo nakabisit in recent 5 to 7 years. Mahirap eh. Ang hirap kasi dahil kung sinasabi natin ready ba yung Mindanao pag tumanggap ng tourist, I think it's for them to know na sana pumunta sila sa Mindanao kasi honestly kagagaling ko lang ng Tawi-Tawi and titingnan mo it's not really perfect yung tourism environment but slowly unprecedented nag-accept na sila yung mentality na kaya namin mag-host ng tourists dahil sa mga nangyayaring developments sa region. Basically, yun lang Ma'am Inday. Kaya naman siguro nag-react yung karamihan sa mga taga Mindanao is dahil hindi nila nakikita na yun pa rin yung reality. At least doon sa mga areas na kung saan sila nakabase.
Okay. Julie, do you feel the same way? I mean, you've covered, rock and roll sa region, in your area for a long time, no? So how do you feel this way? Ano ba yung pagbabago? At meron rin bang dahilan rin na mag-agam-agam rin tayo na hindi mag-rush, sa pagbukas ng todo?
Yeah, yeah, like what Amir said earlier, siguro kung titignan natin, not just siguro 5 to 7 years ago, 10 years ago, say for example, sa 2000, 2004, 2010, or siguro mga before, mga 2013 because Zamboanga was under siege at that time, pwede naming sabihin na talagang cautious kami na mag-invite ng mga visitors, not just foreigner, no? Kasi when we talk about tourism naman, it's not just about foreigners, but we also consider the local visitors. Kahit local visitors, siguro magdadalawang isip kami in those days. Pero sa ngayon, um, ay ang hindi nga ako makapaniwala kasi nitong pandemic I was really very worried about Sulu kasi ito yung area na may problema pa nga dati sa security and then nagkaroon ng pandemic and hindi natin alam kung ano yung situation. I had an opportunity to visit Sulu early part of 2020 hanggang another trip the later part of 2020. Makikita mo talaga na malaki yung pagbabago. Like you see although yung mga houses along the beaches, there is naging parang backyard resort. Wala kang maririnig na report na yung mga food delivery services which in the past, magtitinda ka lang ng herbal, mapupugutan ka na ng ulo. Pero yung kanilang business sa food delivery talagang nag-grow. And then you hardly hear any atrocities na nangyayari sa area. Same in Basilan except for the recent yung explosion in Isabela City. Pero all throughout, we can even interview the Abu Sayyaf who were responsible for kidnapping for some humanitarian workers, and we see how they grow to be a farmer and now a politician. Malaki yung pagbabago. Kaya ang Zamboanga City, siguro nung 2013, I can say to Raisa na it's not really safe to come here. Pero we are living in that kind of situation at that time, and you can see the difference if you come over here. Kaya nga doon sa mga post ko, I always tag Raisa that please do come. I can be like I invite other foreign journalists to come over na wala kaming security, wala namang nangyayari sa amin. Ang ano lang, gusto ko lang talaga maipakita na the Sulu, Basilan, Tawi-Tawi, Zamboanga City, malaki yung pagbabago. Kaya nga medyo off tangent para sa akin yung Twitter ni Raisa, and in fact, masakit yung sabihan mo na kidnapping, tausug, kidnapping family, and sabihin na abduction transpired in Zamboanga City. Since 2013, 2014, you could hardly, wala na kaming ganong report na nangyayari. I cover itong mga Abu Sayyaf na attacks in Sulu, Basilan, and sometimes in Zamboanga City kung may mga explosion. So far, if you chine-check ko yung mga articles na pinapadala ko from that time hanggang ngayon, makikita mo na mostly iba na yung takbo ng mga stories about peace and security. Unlike before, I'm counting deaths. Siguro nagkaroon na kami ng pagbibilang ng patay nung C-130 crash, and I don't think it has something to do with tourism. Iba naman yun eh. So, siguro kailangan lang talaga tayong i-appreciate yung areas, yung lugar, bago nating i-generalize that these places are not yet ready for even local tourists. Yun.
Sige. Julie, may follow-up question lang ako. Then I'm going to give the floor to Herbie because I'm sure Herbie will have some questions. Then we'll get back to Raisa. Nabanggit mo na may malaking pagkakaiba na in the way that you write, you cover security issues, no? Anong mga particular? Can you give more insights on this? Let's say, ano na yung mga focus ngayon? At may pagkakaiba, ang mga journalists din ba mismo, may ibang appreciation na of what security, entails pag pinag-uusapan natin sa mga stories natin.
Dati kasi, paano ko ba i-explain? Kasi nasa defense ako. Ang aking beat coverage is defense. So, we always regularly monitor kung ano yung nangyayari sa mga areas na considered na may security challenges. Nung una yung mga stories na pinofocus namin, it's more on armed conflict or terrorism. Sa ngayon, yung mga stories namin, it's more on weaving the coping with na mga kababaihan na dating naging biktima rin ng gera. We also cover how these Abu Sayyaf become productive members of the society in Basilan, and paano din yung healing na nangyayari sa mga survivors ng mga attacks in the past. So makikita mo yung mga narratives ng mga taong ito. Iba hindi katulad nung narratives dati na when we just focus on the military sourcing. Dati kasi we focus more on military as the main source. That was siguro mga 15 years ago. But today we go to the area, we see the places. Dati if we cover, we need to have security. Now we go on our own. Walang naghahabol, walang nagko-question. Kahit during the pandemic, we just show our RT-PCR result. Ang maraming pagbabago, Inday. Hindi siya katulad nung dati na maraming restrictions din. And madali ding puntahan ng mga areas considering that may mga development din like road projects na like sa 135 circumferential road ng Basilan. Dati hindi mo siya mapuntahan It takes about Kahit Isabela City to Slamitan lang dati takes about 4 hours. Now, we can take it as 35 to 40 minutes. In Sulu, dati hindi ka pwedeng maglakad na nag-iisa ka lang kasi posibleng baka mabaril ka. Pero today, halos makikita mo kahit na nung nagkaroon ng explosion noong 2018 or noong 2018, makikita mo pa rin na yung community, talagang yung mga tindahan along the streets na dati na hindi mo nakikita, talagang it's really bustling. So I really wanted to write stories about Cebu this week. So makikita mo talaga maraming pagkakaiba. And hindi mo na masyado makikita yung mga parang dominant role ng military in particular communities, except perhaps in Sulu in some areas na they considered na medyo may problema pa rin sila sa Abu Sayyaf. But in general, hindi ganun yung situation compared dati.
Herbie, would you like to ask questions? Thanks for
Yes,
that tweet.
before I ask, I'm in the northern part of Mindanao. Maraming maraming magandang tourist destinations dito. I think one of the problems that I'm seeing now is may misunderstanding or hindi clear yung geography. Mindanao is the second largest island, ano? Just like Luzon. Uh, Pag may turista bang pumupunta sa Luzon, umaabot ba sa Babuyan Islands? Point is, napakalaki ng area. There are places in Mindanao na uh, are hot tourism destinations. There are areas na hindi rin. I think that's the same with Luzon and Visayas. Hindi lahat ng areas dyan good for tourism. If you go to the eastern most part of Mindanao, sa Caraga region, sa Siargao, that's a hot tourism spot. Okay, if you go to another place, it may not be the case, no? So yun ang pinupoint out ko. Mindanao is composed of 6 regions. You have the Barm, you have Northern Mindanao, you have the Davao region, you have the Zamboanga Peninsula, you have the Caraga region. Iba-iba yan. Here in Northern Mindanao, may isang place dito, isang isla, Camiguin. That's a province. Ang gandang lugar. So, let me just point out na kailangan naiintindihan, very clear sa atin yung geography. Hindi pare-pareho yung mga areas. So to generalize would not be fair to kung may problema, kung conflict area yung isang region, to say that another region may conflict is also a conflict area wouldn't be fair. May tanong lang ako kay Julie. Julie, nabanggit mo kanina, you said may pagbabago sa situation in your region, in your area. Ano kaya yung reason bakit nagbago? Because you were mentioning may mga explosions, may beheading just a few years ago. Bakit ngayon naiba? Anong reason kaya? What could be the reason for that?
Siguro yung una-una kasi may doon sa mga ilang coverage namin sa Western Mindanao Command, nagkaroon sila ng sinasabi nilang whole of the nation approach, where they involve the LGUs in planning, kasama na rin yung yung active role dito sa pag-improve ng kanilang areas. And then yung issue rin na yung accountability pag wala sila sa kanilang mga areas. Isa din yan sa mga reasons na nakita ko. Pero dun sa BARM kasi, I think it started with the ARMM under Hatama na nag-start sila ng talagang very aggressive move to improve some parts of uh, autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. So makikita mo dati talaga we really questioned why would you entertain the surrender of the Abu Sayyaf? Yung parang ganun yung question namin dati when we are covering. Bakit here comes this idea that you have to welcome your your hands to the Abu Sayyaf? And it was raised before by then Major General Carlito Galvez. So marami kaming question na bakit gagawin mo to. At first hindi namin maisip na pwedeng mangyari yon. And and to this day nakikita namin na okay naman pala na i-invite sila na mag-surrender sila and find them the opportunities to be in the mainstream. In Sulu, I think it has something to do with the Duterte administration. The administration of Sulu under Governor Abdul Sakurtan is very close to President Rodrigo Duterte. So Duterte is frequenting Sulu and makikita mo yung deployment ng troops at first and then suddenly pinull out yung troops in Sulu and then they started recruiting Tausug to be part of the Philippine Armed Forces. So basically, we have like 2 to 3 battalions manning Sulu na talagang galing sa local, homegrown lahat ng mga sundalo. So makikita mo rin yung approaches na uh, full of the nation approach. So sa Tawi-Tawi, I don't have questions in Tawi-Tawi. Tawi-Tawi even nagkakagulo na ang magkabila ang like provinces and even sa Zamboanga City. Tawi-Tawi remains peaceful up to now. Okay pa rin yung kanilang kalakaran, yung pangangalakal nila, yung ekonomiya nila. Kahit nag-pull out ang airlines in Sulu, in Tawi-Tawi hindi ito natigil and they have regular flights at laging puno yan. And it's not just local. I see a lot of foreigners going to the area. So hindi ko lang din talaga na aral ng maigi ko ano talaga yung ah, pagpapatakbo sa Tawi-Tawi, but I think meron din silang mining doon. So posible din isa din ito sa dahilan na bakit laging busy yung Tawi-Tawi sa kanilang komersyo. So yun yung isa sa nakikita ko, no. And in Zamboanga City, uh, Beng is the head of the Regional Peace and Order Council, and nasa ano talaga siya, you see her really going down, really ensuring that lahat ng mga puwersa, lahat ng mga tropa nabibigyan ng pansin at nabibigyan ng sapat na pangangailangan sa kanilang operation. And then the professionalization din ng armed forces sa kanyang AOR. Yun.
Thanks, Julie. These are things that are not frequently reported, or I'm pretty sure you've reported it, may be buried by the other more sensational stories about Mindanao. But and you've said that very clearly, at least from your perspective, na may nagawa na maayos in this past 6 years anyway under Rodrigo Duterte, the outgoing president, dun sa mga areas na yan. No, okay. Now we'll go to Raisa because Raisa wants to respond. I think this is probably to both to the remarks of Julie and Herbie. Raisa, go ahead, and then I'm going to ask Amir a question. Raisa, are you there? Okay, we'll put Raisa on when she comes back. Amir, um, as Julie says, para siguro sa mga taga Maynila, nakakagulat marinig nila. Oh, Raisa, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to put, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Raisa. Go ahead.
Can hear you, but can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
First of all, I think we should put my tweet in the proper context. Because in April, there was a World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit in the Philippines. it took place in Manila, and it was a big one, attended by foreigners who are key in their own tourism sectors, no? And Mindanao as a region was promoted, and one of the pictures that is being promoted very actively is that of the Moro Vinta. So you know that Zamboanga is being promoted. Now, my security concern about Zamboanga is this. Oh, I know, Julie, that you're from there and you stay there, but then look at it from the viewpoint of a foreign tourist, not as a local journalist. You know your way around, but the foreign tourist doesn't. The foreign tourist is going there just to have fun on Santa Cruz Island and to look around and to buy pearls and to buy the cloth. Is the tourist safe even in Zamboanga? We know that snatchings have taken place as recently as several years back. No, I mean, Minda, and I know that Mindanao is a very diverse region, but I'm talking here about the ordinary foreign tourists who are going into an area which is still, you would say from your viewpoint that it's not heavily militarized, but it still is. There are a lot. In fact, most of the military, the army, are all in Mindanao, in certain parts of Mindanao. So please, I mean, this is what I propose. If you're going to put in tourism, to introduce areas that have once been that have once seen a lot of conflict, then have guided tours. But you cannot just open the entire thing to airplanes bringing in tourists, ordinary. I'm talking about ordinary foreign tourists. You need to have package tours. That's what I mean. Where I'm looking at the safety of the foreign tourists. Because they're not, I mean, the reason why Mindanao is being promoted is for the tourism dollars, not just for the local Philippine peso. We know that.
Okay, Raisa, I just want
Okay,
to
I must confess.
ask
Yes.
ask a clarificatory question. Okay, you mentioned papasukin but
Okay.
package tours, but but you're not saying what if there are tourists who will opt to go to Zamboanga, and personally, if I go to other countries, I would not go on a package tour because I feel constrained, no. Although in a country where I have no choice, then maybe. I mean, wouldn't that send an an a stronger message na kailangan pagpasok nyo dito, kailangan naka-package tour kayo, otherwise it will be more dangerous to you. And what if it's somebody who wants to go to, because we're just talking Zamboanga here, okay? To go to Zamboanga and doesn't want to go on a package tour. Can you elaborate on that further?
Okay. And so that is the problem. In Zamboanga, okay, there is a forested area outside of Zamboanga, and that's where they dash. I mean, let's not call it Abu Sayyaf. Let's just call them bandits. That's where they dash. They abduct. There have been a number of abductions that took place in Zamboanga City itself, and the abductors brought them to the outskirts, to the provinces, to the outside Zamboanga, parts of Zamboanga Peninsula. And that's the problem. And that's what I'm talking about. You're asking that question. What if somebody, ordinary couple, wants to go Zamboanga? Will they be safe as a couple? Or me, as a I want to go to Zamboanga, not as a journalist, don't think of me as a journalist. Am I going to be safe if I didn't know the area? I don't
Okay.
know. I mean, if I didn't know where to go, what what to avoid.
Okay. Julie, when was the last abduction in your area?
20 siguro that the last abduction I remember was in 2011. 2011, yeah.
Probably a little more. Yeah.
2013 we had 2013 we had the
No,
siege.
2018. No,
2018.
no, there was one. Wait, let me see. There was a recent one during Duterte's time. And one of the reasons why I think there was an outrage over my tweet was because also of Mayor Sara Duterte. She reacted. And second, the Duterte presidency was able to instill in Mindanaoans a pride for their island. And I think that's why this time there was a very big reaction to my
Okay.
tweet because the
Probably
Mindanaoans are
okay.
now very proud of the island. Wait, let me just I'm trying to see when was the last abduction. Okay, kidnapping
Maminday.
2019,
Yeah.
2019.
Okay. Let me just Raisa, just to point out a few things. Sara Duterte may have said, so may have reacted, to your tweet, and of course we do know that the incoming vice president has a lot of followers, and yet I must point out that a lot of critics of the Duterte administration also, reacted
Yes.
strongly, no, to your tweet. Gusto ko lang ma-point out din yan. And well, kidnapping, okay, we'll take over the 2019, but that's one kidnapping, and there have been kidnappings in Metro Manila and elsewhere,
Yes.
and
Yes,
Yes.
pa-
I'm aware of that.
yeah, so parang what we're trying to do is we understand now, that you care, that you'd like
It was
to
a
see a
couple.
more organized
No, it was a
tourism, no,
couple.
ganon. There's a couple.
That
And
was in Zamboanga del Sur.
Del Sur, okay.
Yeah.
And but let's jump to muna sa Amir. We've
Yes,
granted,
Yes.
Raisa? Yeah. Go ahead there, Amir. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Medyo I think it's kind of insulting to say na nag-react yung mga Mindanaoans because the BP-elect reacted to it. In fact, few days after pa nag-react ang BP-elect Inday Sara Duterte, it's wrong na nagkaroon ng parang false sense of pride dahil dito sa reaction ng BPLR. It's wrong to put that way. I think Julie we have to answer the question of Raisa kung safe ba pumunta yung tourist sa Zamboanga ngayon. I think safe. Kasi it is happening. Minsan yung mga foreign tourists pumupunta ng Zamboanga and then nag-hop papuntang Basilan and sometimes to Tawi-Tawi dahil frequent na yung flights. Yun lang ang gusto nating i-answer dito. And I think it's good thing din na tinitrim down na natin yung discussion. Hindi na to about Mindanao as a whole. Nagtitrim down na tayo sa certain particular geographic location. So, i-answer natin yung question ni Raisa, ma'am. Is it safe pumunta ng Zamboanga, yung foreign tourist ngayon? Yes, it's safe. Kasi sabi ni Julie kanina, madalas nag-host din tayo ng mga journalists na nakikipag-coordinate sa atin to cover Mindanao and Bar. And it used to be, pag pumupunta sila dito 6 years or 7 years ago or 8 years ago, kailangan natin mag-request ng security. Julie knows that. I think Inday knows that pag pumupunta siya dito. But in recent years, I think in the last 6 or 5 years, medyo wala nang ganong klaseng arrangement. And sometimes, nakikipag-coordinate lang tayo pag kailangan nila ng interviews for certain personality. But yung security detail or yung request for security from the PNP and the AFP, even in parts of Maguindanao, in Cotabato City, Ma'am Inday, I know you've been to Cotabato in 2019. That was before pandemic, and nakita niyo po yung development in terms of security, peace and security. And we are attributing this development doon nga sa mga recent breakthroughs sa peace process. And of course, sabi ni Julie kanina, yung Sulu, surprise siya. Ako rin surprised because in the last 3 years, tinatanong natin, bakit ganito yung naging development? Because yung mga local government units ng mga municipalities na to, sila na mismo yung nag instigate na kailangan na ng tourism at sinisecure nila yung kanilang mga municipality for them to be ready sa mga tourists na papunta. And also, let's unpack yung kanina sinabi ni Raisa. Let's go back to the tweet na kanina na pinagmulan. Sinight niya yung Abu Sayyaf na makikidnap ka pagpunta mo ng Mindanao. And I don't think kailangan ng ibang context nun because kung titingnan mo, hindi lang yung target niya yung foreign tourists. Kahit yung local tourists natin sa Pilipinas, ngayon, kailangan na nilang mag-isip na kahit naman safe na, kailangan nilang mag-isip kung tutuloy ba sila or hindi. Ito yung effect nung ganitong klaseng mga impression. And I would like to ask kung si Raisa kung when was the last time na na-visit niya yung Mindanao?
Raisa, are you there?
Yes, but then you should ask me, kasi you're talking about information of what I know about Mindanao. You should ask me, when was the last time I've been talking to people in Mindanao? I think that's a fairer question. But let me ask you, no?
Go ahead.
Yung
So tell us, tell us,
International
tell us
Crisis
about
Group
your
came out
conversations with Mindanao.
with a report March 2022. It says here, while military operations have clearly weakened the militants, the armed forces have not managed to defeat them. So from this report of the International Crisis Group, it implies that there are still militants on the island and they could still make trouble. So are they weak enough so that they will not make trouble using tourists? Because tourists have been a very convenient shield before, or a way of promoting the Islamist fight overseas. So I'm asking you, Amir, since you're familiar with BARM. I mean, I concede that so much has happened with Mindanao. The peace and order situation has really dramatically, improved. There is no question that we have far better peace and order situation now than before, compared to, let's say, 2016. But we're not just talking about peace and order, that kind of peace and order situation. We're talking about a peace and order situation where tourists can come. And that maybe maybe it's not me that you should be discussing this with. Should maybe you should be discussing this with the different embassies. Canada, UK, US, they all have travel advisories against traveling in Mindanao. So how can you promote tourism when all these embassies are telling are telling their citizens, come to Mindanao at your own risk? It's
Okay.
them that
I'm
you
going
have
to.
to urge
Um,
and influence.
I think, well, Raisa, advisories are advisories, and notwithstanding advisories, we do see foreigners from those countries in Mindanao, no, in Zamboanga, and in Cotabato. Just, actually, I within the pandemic, nakaabot ako sa Cotabato, and I was actually surprised to see some people there. Pero dun sa, I've read that same report, the International Crisis Group, and well, it's very clear that they say hindi pa natatalo ang mga ang the groups that may want to foment armed struggle. It's probably for context and siguro, we need to point out that in a lot of areas in Christian Philippines, in Visayas and Luzon also, we do have rebel groups and hindi lahat ng armed rebel groups sa Mindanao are into kidnapping, you know. By delineation din yan dun sa malalaki dati ng MLF, it was smaller. But that's for just para lang sa context, because this is a freewheeling discussion, and I'm so glad that all of you are here in a very civil na nakapag-usap tayo dito, no. Kaklaruhin ko lang, may sinasabi si Julie, no. Yung kidnapping ng 2019 was actually in Zamboanga del Sur, na malayo sa Zamboanga City. At marami raw foreign golfers na nakikita dun sa kanilang area na to. So we're gonna wrap up, but I'm going to be jumping off from what Raisa was saying and ask all three of you for your last thoughts on this. Raisa, aside from your recommending na mag-package tours, which is actually probably good in certain areas, no? Um, ano naman as a journalist, ano ang mabibigay mong payo para na yung mga remaining problematic security um, problems ng Mindanao ay mare-resolve o mai-ease up, no? That's for Raisa. Bago ka magsagot, dediretsuhin ko na kay Amir kasi Amir, um, there have been nagwe-wane and rise ang conflict situation sa Mindanao. There are times where tulad ngayon, no, na maganda, but we know that we don't kill ideas. So totoo in a way, you know, as Raisa said, mahirap masabi na defeated na yung um, the thoughts that may lead to another flare up of conflict. From your end, as somebody who has worked for peace, ano rin ang mga recommendations mo? And Julie, um, as a journalist who has sometimes also gotten in trouble dahil lahat tayo, Herbie, you, Raisa, me, Amir, you know, sometimes pumapanting ang tenga natin, and we use social media to say different things. Ano yung mga, from your point of view, what have you learned as a journalist na ma-rein in or ma to improve, you know, the messages that you put on social media? Because even if these are our personal pages, you know, it is the journalist who owns that page, and it's still the journalist who posts on that page. So si Raisa muna, then si Amir, and then si Julie. Raisa? Raisa?
Okay, this has been my thought, no, about bringing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, this has been my thought. What Mindanao? I've been covering the peace talks, starting with the MNLF in 1994, Nur Miswari, and then after the peace pact was signed, and then Bulyok, blew up, and the MILF declared that they would not recognize the peace, the treaty. This is what I wish the MNLF leadership and the MILF leadership would do. I wish that the leaders of both groups would again, meet and become really united and set aside, whatever differences they have in the past, and bring their contest to contesting the governorship of Barm. I know that Nurmiswari felt so bad when Arm was replaced by Barm, and that's why he decided to, uh, I cannot imagine that he would, he would support Bongbong Marcos. But the the dream of peace in Mindanao and the dream of peace for the entire Philippines has to go down to the deepest levels of leadership of the MILF, MNLF, and the MILF. and also the communist leadership. We are the only country in Southeast Asia, except Myanmar, of course, uh, that has an internal conflict going on for so many years. I wish that instead of bearing arms, we would fight the way we are talking right now. We would discuss and come to a deeper understanding of each other. I used to tell my sources in the MNLF, why do you contest BARM when you can very well contest the elections later and you will become the governor of BARM later? Because BARM is a better setup than ARM. BARM was able to get a better deal from the government. That's all.
Amir, how do we keep our hopes up? From your end, you're a legislator now. You work for peace. How do we keep it there, and how will we continue to slowly, really rid the region of any ideas that may cause another flare up of conflict?
Yes, Ma'am Inday. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. Kanina sinabi niyo na alam naman natin yung situation sa Mindanao or sa Imbar in particular, yung peace and security ay minsan okay, minsan hindi. But I think this is for the very first time, kasi nagkaroon din ako ng feeling ng ganun eh. I think mga 6 or mga 7 years ago. Pero this is the first time na parang may sense of na parang parang eto na yung parang path na sana inshallah na ganito na ka-peaceful ang Mindanao and BARM in particular. This is the first time din na wala na, again sasabihin ko sa inyo, yung pag nag-host kami ng mga bisita and even journalists from outside Mindanao, hindi na ganun ka kakaba, wala na masyadong kaba. In fact, yung mga security detail wala na masyadong ganung arrangement. Malayo yung in terms of peace and order ang inabot ng bar ngayon. Wala na tayo masyadong na-register ng uh, mga conflict in parts of BARM. But I think kaya kami nagre-react doon sa tweet ni Raisa is because malaki yung role ng media dito. And kaya nga binabalik-balikan ko, babaan nyo kami dito sa BARM, babaan nyo kami dito sa Mindanao para makita nyo kung kung ano na yung live realities namin. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng magdepende na lang tayo sa mga kausap natin without seeing with our very own eyes kung ano yung mga developments na nangyayari. I know mahirap, especially mahirap for some na tingnan yung katotohanan, yung reality na malayo na yung situation natin from 6, from 8 years ago. But wala tayong magagawa. May mga changes, may mga improvements tayo pagdating sa tourism. And I hope yung media natin, like Raisa and other media personality, tingnan natin with fresh eyes kung ano yung nangyayari sa Mindanao. Kaya lately, in the recent years, tinatry po natin, Ma'am Inday and Sir Herbie, i-promote yung, hindi lang yung place, yung BARM, yung Autonomous Region, yung Mindanao, but yung mga tao, yung culture, yung pagkain. I think there had been a lot of promotional or articles or stories about our food, our culture, our people na would help in eliminating yung mga preconceived notions natin about Mindanao and about BARM, in particular about Bangsamoro. Yun lang, Ma'am Inday.
Thank you, Amir. Julie, journalist, social media. What are the tips for us to take away um, to be able to explain maybe things clearer because that's what we're in media for, to be communicators and to be able to tell the stories as accurately as possible.
Ako kasi nahihirapan akong, in terms of storytelling, if I don't see the place, I don't speak the people in that place. At ang hirap i-appreciate kung like today we are digital, we are internet, we focus more on connectivity, and we just get data from the social media, which is not really that the real picture. Ako kasi matanda na ako, kaya masyado ring matanda yung sistema ko sa coverage, sa news gathering. I always go down to the place, to see for myself, to feel what is in the area. Ang ano ko lang talaga, malaki talaga yung role ng local government. Ah, sa panahon ni Hatama nung naging ARMM regional governor siya, makikita mo yung the way how the communities really work hard, like to fight against the Abu Sayyaf using their own resources, and how they shield their communities against the Abu Sayyaf. And then I remember even in Albarca, we cannot even go there, and hundreds or perhaps thousands of soldiers have already been buried in that place. And in 2016, 2017, oh no, in 2014, 2016, we were able to go there dahan-dahan, and we appreciated that there's really a beauty in that place. And we were able to talk to the people that were accused or charged of, decapitating Marines in that area. And we listened to their stories. May mga stories din sila to tell, relying mostly from the military, the police, for that kind of context and narrative. Hindi siya makakatulong, and it cannot give you clearer picture of what is happening sa area. And if it but ang sa akin lang, we go and talk to the small voices. These are the weavers, these are the fishermen, these are the ones who produce food for the tables community. And you see how they prepare food, and they you see how they create beautiful crafts. Ito yung mga hindi nabibigyan ng pansin in terms of pansin, which I think dahan-dahan na nabibigyan ng atensyon sa ngayon compared 10 years ago. Maganda kasi gusto pa rin talaga i-relate, right? Like I brought Ryan Anson in Sulu. Alam mo kung paano yung treatment ng mga tao doon. They are really very happy to see new faces. They're not there to snatch you. They are there to welcome you. And I'm still willing and open to bring you around. Huwag ka mag-alala. We are also planning to go to Sulu and to enjoy the resorts there. Hindi man siguro, I don't think ganito din yung situation sa amin. I think some parts of Visayas and Sulu, ganito rin naman yung situation. Not all areas are really pwedeng puntahan mo kaagad, and you need to coordinate. Pero in this area, you just have to pack your bags, and I will wait for you at the airport without security. And I assure you, you will come home with different perspective of what is Zamboanga City minus Zamboanga del Sur, and what is Basilan, Tawi-Tawi, and Sulu. Samahan ka pa namin ni Amir, and you can bring your friends around and your family. I remember even Vice President Lenny Robredo, when she went to Marang-Marang, it was a small community surrounded by mangrove. So pag pumunta ka ng Basilan, you don't see that community, just the huge mangrove surrounding that community. And you will later realize that there's a beautiful place in that small island. And even Vice President Lenny said, sana dinala niya yung mga anak niya para makita niya kung gaano kaganda, kung gaano kalinis yung lugar niyo. So, probably yun lang yung take away ko. Let's travel.
Thank you. Julie, Amir, wag niyo kaming kalimutan ni Herbie pag nagpunta si Raisa doon. But, okay, just very briefly, I'll say this. Amir mentioned that I had been in Mindanao, in Cotabato, and was also in Marawi, um, just shortly after the pandemic, after the siege and all that stuff. No? I talked to young people, I talked to old people. These were young people with scars, the scars they got from their parents. So, hindi naman kakailan natin that Mindanao has a lot of scars. And yet, what we do see right now in Mindanao is the determination of the people to heal these scars. There may be setbacks from time to time, but I think it's enough to say that the perseverance of the people and the LGUs, no, despite maybe the pitfalls of policies, national policies, um, is very impressive. It will never be completely completely free of conflict, as this country anywhere is never entirely conflict free of conflict. And yet life goes on in there, and I think Mindanaoans have, the right to be proud about what they've done, in the last, not just during the time of Rodrigo Duterte, but even before that, Um, and while that pride is well deserved, maybe our last pakiusap rin lang namin is that to also to look sa amin na hindi taga Mindanao, no? With a little bit of patience and compassion when we sometimes don't quite figure out how to take Mindanao, because as everybody says, it's too big, it's too diverse. Sometimes we could lose our way. So hopefully we'll have more guides, great guides like Julie, Herbie, and Amir from Mindanao, and to be able to carry on this very civil conversation. Right, Sam, maraming salamat for trusting us. Julie, Amir, Herbie, maraming salamat. This is Voices from the Region. Sa susunod po natin pag-uusap.